Well, our big focus, Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has said that Canada will significantly reduce the number of new immigrants it allows into the country after acknowledging that his government failed to get the balance right coming out of the pandemic. But before we get you the details on that, I'd like to also let you know that Sanjay Verma, the envoy to India, has actually spoken about the radicalization of Khalistani elements as far as students are concerned in Canada. My colleague Vishnu Shol spoke exclusively to him on NDTV's Left, Right and Centre. Take a glimpse of that.
What about Indian students? I believe we are the largest cohort of international students in Canada. They would have anxious parents. They would be worried about visas in the future. I was a student in Canadian universities. Both my degrees are from there. What would your message be to all of those, very concerned people back home? Their kids are over there.
What I would say is that their kids should be aware of the surroundings in which they are. They should not be influenced by the outreach from these Khalistani terrorists and extremists. And they should look after themselves well. In Canada at the moment, from these Khalistanis, I think there is a perceived threat to the larger Indian community, including the students' community. And therefore, if they see anything suspicious or they are reached out by someone whom they feel is suspicious, they should immediately report to the law and order authority of their region.
That's an important statement, sir. There is an outreach effort by Khalistani sympathizers in Canada towards Indian students.
Yes.
How does that happen?
So basically, how it works is that with the status of the Canadian economy at the moment, the jobs are not being created, and many students would go for jobs which are much below what they should be doing. They are unable to meet their ends, and some of these Canada-based and Canadian Khalistani extremists and terrorists will try to allure them by giving them money, by giving them food, and therefore trying to influence them with the kind of nefarious businesses that they are doing. Some of the students get attracted towards that. Then there is another thing which is happening. Some of the students would be asked to get photographed in front of the Indian High Commission in Ottawa or the two consulates, shouting anti-India slogans, desecrating our flag, or doing something which is disrespectful to India, and then they will go and seek asylum, because their version will be that if I go back to India now, I'll be punished.
So one way of people seeking asylum would be under the influence of Khalistani extremists. Students would come in front of the High Commission or one of our consulates, do something which insults our flag, our embassy, our High Commission, etc., and then seek asylum, right? And there have been cases of students like that being granted asylum.
Many such cases. And recently we have also come across some of the cases where Indian nationals would land at the airport. With the visa, Canadian visa, they will not be allowed in. And in a few cases, very few cases, the Canadian authority there will ask them, look, if you file an asylum request, you'll be allowed in. What is this? So there are various kinds of influences which are pushing these students in the wrong direction. So parents, please talk to your children very regularly. Try to understand their welfare. Give them sane advice so that they don't fall on the wrong side of the society.
The big story we're tracking from Canada, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has said that Canada will significantly reduce the number of new immigrants it allows into the country after acknowledging that his government has failed to get the balance right coming out of the pandemic. Now, while Canada has long prided itself as a place that welcomes new immigrants, public opinion in the country has recently soured on immigration, which has been blamed for reducing housing affordability. Canada is now set to bring in 3,95,000 new permanent residents in the year 2025, 3,80,000 new immigrants in 2026, and 3,65,000 new immigrants in 2027. That's down from 4,85,000 in 2024 in the first multi-year reduction since Ottawa started laying out multi-year immigration levels back in 2018. To understand the ramifications on ground zero, we have with us Daniel Boardman at the moment. As always, Daniel, thanks so much for making time for us. Some industry experts I've been speaking to in Canada argue that they were able to officially avoid a recession because of immigration. But Daniel, what have been some of the initial reactions to this major reversal in immigration policy on home ground?
Everyone's happy with the reduction, and vast majority of people say it's not enough. It should be even lower. And while it is technically true that immigration did save us from a recession, it made the country poorer by just increasing GDP, but it reduced GDP per capita. So Canada used to be a resource industry before Justin Trudeau. We have tons of oil, we have tons of natural gas, we have tons of lumber, and this is the backbone of our economy. When Justin Trudeau came in, this is, of course, to save the planet. We have to get rid of all of this. So Canada's new economy is now human trafficking and money laundering. We call this immigration and education. So many Indian students that I saw the second one you just did, and a lot is right in there. Many Indian students coming into Canada are not actually students, but they're victims of human trafficking. If you're going to a real Canadian university like McGill, U of T, UBC, then this doesn't apply to you. That's what most Indians think Canadian schools are. But in the Trudeau administration, we've had this boom of sort of fake schools, diploma mills.
Right.
So it's like a strip mall. There's a room inside a strip mall, like a place. There'll be 8 schools in that one classroom. They have one online course per week, and you pay $20,000 or 20 lakh to get into that. So Canada's now a human trafficking scheme, mostly from India, and you have criminal organizations on the Indian side and criminal organizations on the Canadian side working together with usually Khalistanis to bring people into the country. So with the criminal organizations, you can you get these families and whatever, you sell the dream of Canada, mostly to kids in the Punjab region, you bring them into Canada. These immigration consultants say, don't worry, you'll be able to stay in Canada indefinitely because we'll cheat the system. You sign something saying you're not allowed to leave, you'll go home after your education.
In fact, malpractices in this entire immigration exercise have been brought to the fore and are under investigation increasingly now. Daniel, we have been able to establish through opinion polls in Canada that a growing number of Canadians do think that Canada is bringing in too many immigrants, as you're highlighting. But are small business owners' heads spinning from this change, or overall it's being considered a positive sort of reversal in policy?
Well, overall, it's a positive. It's not small business owners. Major corporations are going to be mad because the Trudeau government has been subsidizing major corporations hiring foreign workers, and then it's even the exploitation of, again, these foreign workers increases because there's this thing called an LMIA, which is like a paper you get to say that the company couldn't find a Canadian citizen to fill the particular job you're doing. Right. So you'll find people getting LMIAs to work fast food jobs. And you can't really make the argument that there was no one willing to work a fast food job in the country. You had to hire an illegal immigrant. But again, a foreign worker. But foreign workers are subsidized, Canadians are not. And foreign workers are also exploited because these LMIA markets are now dark markets where they're forcing these foreign workers to, again, pay $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 just to get that LMIA. So you're going into further debt to get these jobs. So this is where criminal organizations come in. They can subsidize you. You want to get out of this student debt where you're living on a floor with 9 people in a room? Well, join a Khalistani gang, and then you can start doing highly lucrative criminal activity. As you play the thing, it's quite correct. They do encourage students to go in front of the embassies and the thing and wave Khalistan flags and threaten India, claim bogus asylum things. That's another 5K. You usually run yourself. So this is the system that's propped up Canada's economy for the last 10 years. It's exploiting people mostly from India, but other parts of the world, getting $20,000, $30,000 out of them, and then dumping them in hyperinflating the real estate market because you have 10 students to one apartment, so you can sort of bump up the rent because you can charge
well, the government there says that these measures are expected to result in a population decline of 0.2% in both the coming years of 2025 and 2026. But many are still questioning whether it's enough to bring down immigration levels to a permissible level and whether it's enough to reduce Canada's housing supply gap. Thanks so much, though, Daniel Boardman, as always, for joining us on NDTV.
Thanks, Pat.
Meanwhile, the German Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, is in India as part of his 3-day official visit, during which he and Prime Minister Modi will take part in wide-ranging talks with a focus on boosting bilateral strategic ties in the areas of defense, trade and clean energy. As far as the plan of action is concerned for today, Prime Minister Modi and Mr. Scholz will co-chair the 7th Intergovernmental Consultations. And as you know, the IGC is a whole-of-government framework under which ministers from both sides hold discussions in their respective areas of responsibility and then report on the outcome of their deliberations to the Prime Minister as well as the Chancellor. The German cabinet, by the way, has recently adopted a key document titled Focus on India, aimed at elevating the bilateral relations to the next level. My colleague Mohammad Ghazali has been tracking the German Chancellor's visit very closely. He joins us live at the moment. Ghazali, take us through the German Chancellor and Prime Minister Modi's plan of action for the day.
See, today there are bilateral talks which will be held between India and Germany, between the Chancellor of Germany, Mr. Olaf Scholz, and Mr. Narendra Modi, the Indian Prime Minister. And it is more of an intergovernmental consultation group, which is basically the entire cabinet or the key cabinet ministers of India and Germany. They will both be meeting today. Today at 10 a.m. around, the first meeting between Indian Prime Minister and German Chancellor, Mr. Olaf Scholz, will be held. But in the larger context, the relevance of this visit is very important. Why? We know that Germany's economy has taken a hit because of its involvement and assistance to the Ukraine-Russia war. Also, Germany is also looking for a key partner in Asia because of the rising influence of China near the South China Sea and its frictions with Taiwan. And that is why Germany is looking for a reliable partner. And Germany's ambassador to India, Mr. Ackman, recently was quoted saying that perhaps India's entire strength, because India and Germany are have a great coordination when it comes to defense cooperation, when it comes to technological cooperation, technology transfer between India and Germany. And besides that, this particular visit is also focused on how Germany looks at India when it comes to human resource or workforce, to add workforce in its own country. And that is why there have been, as you were rightly mentioning about how the Germany's cabinet has also released the India-focused cabinet, which talks about increasing the visa to Indian students and also to the Indians who want to work in Germany. So these are the key issues which will be discussed between the meeting when Prime Minister Modi and German Chancellor Mr. Olaf Scholz meets today. And German Chancellor Mr. Olaf Scholz is also expected to attend Indo-German Chamber of Commerce meeting today, where more than 800 CEOs will be attending the meet from India and Germany. So that is also going to be the key focus area when it comes to the trade partnership between the two countries.
As always, Ghazali, thanks so much for joining us with the latest details. In other news, chip giant Nvidia is deepening its ties to the growing Indian artificial intelligence market. The US firm has announced a slate of partnerships with Indian businesses, including Reliance. In fact, Nvidia also plans to work with a local IT company to create an AI model in Hindi. Global chip firms are racing to build semiconductor facilities in India, which aims to eventually compete with other tech hubs like Taiwan. But Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang said that instead of focusing on manufacturing chips, India should harness its data and energy resources to become an artificial intelligence export powerhouse. In fact, he argues other countries have been manufacturing chips for a long time. No one manufactures intelligence at the moment. Well, switching tracks, Russian President Vladimir Putin has not denied US claims that North Korea had sent troops to Russia, but said that it was up to Moscow how to run its mutual defense clause with Pyongyang and accused the West of escalating the Ukraine war. Meanwhile, Putin said that his relationship with the United States after the presidential elections would depend on what attitude Washington adopts, as he welcomed comments by Donald Trump on his desire to end the Ukraine conflict as sincere. But the Kremlin leader struck a hardline tone, warning the West it was an illusion to think Russia could be defeated on the battlefield and that any peace deal would have to recognize Russia's control of swaths of Ukrainian territory. And for a quick comment on the matter, we have with us Dr. Zakir Hussain from the Indian Council of World Affairs. Thanks so much, sir, for joining us. Now, Putin essentially says the ball is in Washington's court on US-Russia ties, but in the backdrop of Trump's criticism of the scale of US military assistance for Ukraine, B, his apparent reluctance to blame Putin for Russia's full-scale invasion, and C, during the presidential debate, Trump's refusal to say whether he wants Ukraine to win the war. At this stage, would it be fair to say that many in Moscow are actually waiting to toast to Trump winning in about 2 weeks, sir?
Yeah, of course, since long, we find that Trump and Putin has a close relation, but we don't know that whether this will continue or not, because the way Russia is developing a multi-global network, which has been shown in BRICS in Kazan, this does not suit to the interests of the United States. It has built a wide network with half of the population, and they are trying to dislodge de-dollarization and payments, developing parallel payment system. This is not suiting to U.S. interest, and I don't think that Trump would like this development, because he wants America first and he wants to establish American hegemony. So if Trump comes, I feel that there will be a bone of contention between the two leaders, while at the same time the Korean issue is also brewing up. So both the countries are at a crossroad, and let us see what happens in the coming months and years.
Well, the election in the United States is around the corner, and we will, of course, revert to you for regular updates. Thank you so much, Dr. Sen, for joining us on NDTV. Well, as always, news and updates continue in a moment right after this very short break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. CIA Director Bill Burns is expected to travel to Doha this weekend for talks with his Qatari, Egyptian and Israeli counterparts about a hostage release and ceasefire.